And that is one of the fundamental thinking in our initiatives, that each one of the bilateral security arrangements must use a component of an international force involvement. Jerusalem will be split into 3. Jewish neighborhoods will go to Israel, including the Western Wall. Arab neighborhoods will be part of Palestine, and the Mount Temple will be under no sovereignty, if you like, sovereignty of God, with special arrangements that will involve very closely Saudi Arabia, Morocco, and Jordan, the 3 custodians of Haram al-Sharif, and the local Waqf. We think that these are possible solutions. All you need is courageous leadership to reach that. With Syria, yes, we are talking with no illusions. Israel will have to go back to the 67 borders. Major security arrangements shall be agreed. I think if you knew the details of the Israeli-Syria negotiations, you would be amazed to see how close the parties were to reaching an agreement. There are very few differences of opinion. In a way, we think that there could be some elements of land swaps between Israel and Syria as well, because of the complexity of what is exactly the 67 borderline and how the complications of the international border between historic Palestine and Syria, as they were defined in 1923, how those complications can be woven into the solution rather than blocking it. In a way, we think that this is a doable, tough but doable deal. Second component is something new that we want to bring to original thinking. By the way, so far, the Arab Peace Initiative is one-to-one mapping to what we did in the first block of how we see the regional permanent status. We wanted to add a few more elements so that we can strengthen the table of regional stability based on 4 legs and not just on 1 leg of conflict resolution. So we thought about regional security, and regional security in the widest sense of the word, not just military security, but also working and fighting crime together, nature disasters, etc. So we think it is time to think about the regional security in a much wider term than any of the individual state particular set of interest or any particular bilateral issues that may emerge and may or need to be addressed. Third component, which is a key, it is not just because we are business people, it is also because we strongly believe that without strengthening the economic development of the region, we will not be able to show to the people of the Middle East the benefits of the peace treaty. Furthermore, it will destabilize any peace agreement signed, because you can have whatever borders and walls you may want, but at the end of the day, the history of the Middle East, especially for those of us who come from Abrahamic nature, or Abrahamic origin, shows that when we have hungry people in our region, they can walk. And when they walk, they go to other kingdoms and they go to other states, and nothing will stop them in search for food, water, and shelter. That has been true in Bible times. That is true even today. Just look at what's happening between Israelis and on the border between Israel and Egypt, and that is a strategic problem for the region that has to be addressed. Last but not least, how do we make quiet yet gradual progress towards normal ties, taking away the romantic notion of normalization, put it to bed, it is not relevant. How do we just get to normal ties, and how do we make practical, sometimes invisible and later visible steps towards normal ties? Forget the word normalization. Last but not least, a call for action, and the call for action is to our government, to our people, to call the Israeli government to make a historic decision and move forward with a proactive approach and offering an initiative like this. So who we are. The initiative started originally through some work between Yuval Rabin, the son of late Yitzhak Rabin, Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, and myself. And for 3 years we were doing most of the work on our own. We then approached Jacob Perry, who immediately decided to endorse the initiative and help us bring it to the public exposure. Today, we are close to 160 members, pro-net Israelis. The majority, surprisingly, is coming from the business and high-tech world. This has never been the case in Israel. We have something like 14 different peace initiatives coming from civil society in Israel. Never ever have business people joined them dramatically as they did with us. Some are, of course, ex-security and military. Some come from diplomatic background. And we have people from the media, from education, from the academia. But I'd like to show you a few names that will tell you the story. We found out that the members of our group come from 5 different political homes. It is not a party. It is not a political entity. It is apolitical. It is representing what we think is mainstream Israelis. On the one hand, we have people who are declared left-wing activists. On the other hand, we have Dr. Adina Bar Shalom, who is the daughter of Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, who is the major figure in the ultra-Orthodox Sephardic Jewish community in Israel. And she bravely joined our group because of her commitment to peace and regional approach. We have people who come from very typical center approach like Dan Gillerman. We have people with no political home, but with very strong business position like Idan Ofer. And I'm very glad to say that when Yuval Rabin and myself wanted to launch this, back when we were talking to you, the idea was to create an article in Haaretz, one of the newspapers, and to have 10 people who will say, yes, we stand with you. We didn't want to do it on our own. When it was launched in April, we had 52 signatories. Today, as I said, we have 160. But more importantly, is the reaction of some of the people who couldn't sign, but gave us a nod of acceptance. Our number one citizen and a few members of the cabinet, who said, we will never endorse this initiative in public because it would mean a complete political suicide for us. But if it were brought to the government for a decision, we wouldn't leave the government because of this proposal. Deep in our hearts, we reject the proposal, but deeper in our hearts, we know that there's no other deal. So we painfully know that one day we will have to accept it. I will go back to this psychological acceptance through denial in a moment. So our mission is to convince the Israeli decision makers to take a regional initiative. And here's what we do. Since our target is to convince Israeli government decision makers, we do it in 2 ways. First, by acting and addressing the Israeli political system, the international community in the Arab world. And second, by addressing the Israeli public. So if you like, a top-down approach and a grassroots approach. We act as an international advocacy group. We propose working papers. We have newsletters. We participate with other initiatives like building the Middle East Economic Forum, creating Middle East civil society dialogue, and we hope to promote a conference and track to diplomacy that would bring together the Arab Peace Initiative and the Israeli Peace Initiative and somehow form a united view of the region. In the internal advocacy role that we took upon ourselves, yes, we lead campaigns, we do a lot of work behind the scene.